We are at ELO, if I remember correctly, right?
Correct.
We are Electric
All
Light
right.
Orchestra.
So Matt, you're gonna clean the stacks, and I believe you are also the first take as
Round the
well.
horn.
Oh, I am. Okay, here we go. All right, so ELO's a New World Record ranks at number 138 in the 1970s from Best Ever Albums.
Do you want to share what ELO stands for, Matt?
Electric Light Orchestra.
There we go.
And number 11 in 1976, number 578 of all time. It's their second highest ranked album on Best Ever Albums behind 1977's Out of the Blue. It is not on Rolling Stone's list, so this is another John pick that we are covering here. And this album, I don't really know a whole lot of ELO. I mean, I knew Jeff Lynne is the guy behind ELO. Jeff Lynne was probably also known as the least famous member of the Traveling Wilburys. And I probably knew Jeff Lynne more for the work that he did as a producer for people like Tom Petty, and I know he was always close with George Harrison. And I mean, as a Beatles fan, it's hard for me not to like this album. This is like, let's just do what the Beatles did and turn it up, man. Let's really lay into what they're doing, because that's all over this album. So, and just with just a lot of lush production. We're getting a lot of very produced albums in this episode, and this is certainly no exception. I didn't really note the only song I knew on here was Telephone Line, and that's because it was on Billy Madison.
I remember the exact
same
thing.
Oh
That was
God,
the
I
Billy Madison
didn't
song.
even put two to two together on that.
Yeah.
But all right.
It's this. Yeah, it's when Steve Buscemi takes him off his people to kill list. But it's a great song. It's like a really constructed, melodic pop song, very produced, very Beatlesque. That's the second track on here, and that's kind of what I was getting overall with this album. It's kind of like a lot of '60s pop structure, with that kind of the. It's all kind of couched in like a '60s rock, maybe even some cases like a doo-wop, even into the '50s, like an older type of style. But because of the production, because of the the synthesizers and just the layers of things that they're putting on top of it, it kind of gives it more of the quote unquote modern '70s sound, I guess. So so I like this. Some of the stuff sounded just like this. Sounds like a George Harrison song. Like this, what was it? And McCartney-esque. Like I think like a lot of these would have just been songs that I could have heard McCartney doing. Like Above the Clouds has this bouncy piano part that seems very much like in line with what McCartney was doing in the '70s. I knew Do Ya.
Yeah.
Do Ya. As soon as that song came, I was like, oh, I know that song. Like, it's another one of those songs that's kind of played in the background, but I never really picked up on who it was. So I thought Livin' Thing was like more of a George Harrison sounding song. There were a couple of songs on here that I was like, this is a song that Harrison might have done or sound like he would have done. So, So Fine had a guitar part that sounded like the Doobie Brothers, this upbeat, catchy kind of like, strumming of the guitar. Good background singing, a lot of falsetto singing, a lot of good harmonies. And it seems like kind of like almost, I want to say it's like there's elements of like a space rock kind of a thing going on here, just with the sounds that they're going for.
Well, there's space sounds in So Fine.
Yeah, but even in some of just like the way that they're trying to connect the effects that they're doing into like a musical instrument, like a futuristic sound, and I think and then there's stuff like Rockaria that has like a Southern blues classic rock sound to it, so they're throwing a little bit of that in there, and I think I did like this. I don't know if I was surprised that I liked it. Maybe I was, because I've always heard of ELO again, but it's never been a band that I've explored. It's never been something that somebody's played for me. But Beatlesque is very much the takeaway from this album, and me as a Beatles fan, I love that. Some of the production might be a little too much here and there, but I don't think it was anything that was taking away too much from what was happening melodically and structurally. So I'm a thumbs up on this. It's it's a catchy album, man.
Yeah, I was surprised at how catchy it was as well, and how much, those two ELO songs, I don't think I knew the songs, but I didn't know they were ELO. And they do seem to be drawing from a lot of different, influences. And it changes from song to song too. Right from On Tightrope, it sounded like a Queen, almost like prog hybrid type of song, and then I heard like some Succession theme music in there as well towards the end, and some Elton John type of piano melodies and Beach Boy harmonizing and so on and so forth.
That's who I heard, Josh.
Yeah.
The Beach Boys on this one for sure. Yeah,
they are drawing on all that, and then they're adding this electronic element with the keyboards and organs throughout the entire thing, and the combination of all that just makes this kind of enjoyable listen. And I can see why they got popular in the way they did. They, like Matt said, they are good singers as well. They have this kind of sheen to them, or this smoothness, I guess, in their singing and sound. And I think that is a testament to why they're kind of infectious and fun to listen to. I give this a recommend. I would need to listen to it again to evaluate, and I would have to see what other popular songs they've done too. I'm sure I know some of their other more popular ones as well, but
they do Evil Woman. Sherry was telling me that they did Evil Woman.
Okay.
You know that song, right?
No.
Evil Woman. I can't do the high part because of my voice, but you know that song, Josh.
Okay. All right. I'll listen to that too.
Look it up.
And yeah, it's good. It's good. I don't have a lot to say on it, but it's not as even though they're drawing on these different influences and throwing some things in there, it's not as overwhelming in the way the Kansas is. They give space and they craft the songs in a way that are very accessible and catchy.
I think that's a good point. I agree.
Yeah, this is a little bit of everything. I feel like it's a throwback to like classic 50s, 60s rock and roll at times. There's definitely a Beatles influence, as Matt mentioned. There's definitely a Beach Boys California pop sound element to this, that like almost like Brian Wilson, Mamas and the Papas, like El Dorado type music, I think, is in this. It's sort of a collection of all of the music, not all, but a lot of the music styles that came before it. There's certainly an R&B influence. There's bass lines throughout this album that pop out when you're listening to it. I kind of I like this album because of the variation of it. I'll be honest, guys, the reason I picked this group is because I do very little, much like you, Matt. I knew Jeff Lynne as a producer, especially for groups in the 80s and early 90s. And I knew he was in the Traveling Wilburys. He always seemed like, I knew he was in a band, ELO, that was relatively popular, but ELO was always one of those bands that I kind of like. I was like, okay, I know they're a thing, but you know me, I'm pretty well aware of the hits of just about everybody. I couldn't have named you a single ELO song before I did this, which is why I wanted to pick them. As a result, I listened on Spotify, but I wasn't looking, and it was funny how the songs I picked out as my favorite songs, there wasn't a bad song on this album, is one thing I'll say. There were no real duds, but there were some I liked more than others, and it was fascinating how much the three songs I identified as I like these the most were clearly also the three most popular songs. That's not always the case for me, but Telephone Line, I really liked. I loved Livin' Thing in particular, and Do Ya I liked. And boom, those are the ones that are over 15 million listens apiece. I don't think there's anything else that's the next highest is 5.8 million at Tightrope, which would be my choice for the fourth best song on the album. So it's amazing how much it lined up with what I was listening to. The songwriting was pretty good on this album, I actually have to say. Like lyrically, of the four we've covered so far, and now the two final ones, spoiler alert, they're much better lyrically than any of these. But I liked the lyrics that were being there. I like how Jeff Lynne can go up to like falsetto at times, but then also sing in a more standard voice. There's synth all over this album as well. A lot of percussion. Once again, much like Kansas, there's this presence of strings. I don't know if that was a thing in the mid-'70s that I feel like was being revisited, but there's like an orchestral element at different times. It's a genre-bending album, which I appreciate. It's sort of like a greatest hits collection of, I think, all the stuff that the band members, especially Jeff Lynne, listened to ahead of it, which to some degree wasn't that what the Traveling Wilburys were designed to celebrate, right? And all the way down to like grabbing Roy Orbison to be in them, right?
Yeah.
So I almost feel like the Traveling Wilburys were like, let me take all the stuff I liked. I'll get Roy Orbison for that, and the Beatles with George Harrison, and then I got Bob Dylan. I'll throw him in there, and then, you know, I'll throw myself and Tom Petty in as sort of the lineage, you know, and that's what we'll do. And that's what this album sort of felt like, him paying homage along the way. I like this one, though. I would say I would give this more than just a mild thumbs up. I'd give this a pretty good thumbs up. Once again, does it transcend into like a you have to listen to this album, or like a this is a great surprise? Like, I don't know if it raises to that level, but once it was a very pleasant listen. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
John, was there a reason you chose this album in
Because
particular?
I think it's because I did not know much about Electric Light Orchestra, and they were a band that I knew had enough presence, you know, that they were important in the 70s, and then, you know, Jeff Lynne and his background. I just felt like I needed to know more about ELO than I did.
Right,
and so
but I
that's
mean,
how
this album because this is the second highest ranked album. I don't know if there was like a song that you had heard, or if how you came up with this one.
I think I just picked it because it was sort of the one that was when I looked to see which ELO album to cover. I can't remember what framework. It might have been the 1001 albums to listen to before you die. It might have been on that. It somehow showed up in a chart that made it the album for me to listen to.
Yeah. This stat here, just
maybe All Music. It might be All Music. That was the most well regarded.
They had 15 top 20 songs in the Billboard Hot 100.
Wow.
And in the UK they had 27 top 40 songs. So they were very popular.
That's what I'm saying. They were well selling. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you know and I know Roy Wood is in this group too, and he is another guy whose name comes up from time to time. Like, I think he's like a multi-instrumentalist type. I think he's a songwriter as well. Although I think he's still in ELO at this point. I know he leaves at one point, but yeah, he is. I just checked. He is on this album. So he's another name that I was vaguely familiar with as well from being in the group.
This is probably the most enjoyable album of the 6 that I like this week.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, I recommend it.
It's praise. Fun. There we go. Matt, any final thoughts?
No, I agree. It's I think the Beach Boys is another good comparison. Very feel like catchy melodic stuff. I mean, I don't know. You might find some people might find this a little too produced or too much, but I think the songs certainly are there, and it's a fun record. I enjoyed it.